Now I take great pleasure in introducing our chief guest, Sri Manoj Ahuja sir, Chairman CBSE, Minister of Education. Sri Manoj Ahuja is an IAS officer of 1990 batch from Orissa cadre. He holds BE Mechanical from Thapar Institute of Engineering and Technology, Patiala, MBA from Punjab University, Chandigarh, and Masters in Public Administration from Harvard University, USA. He joined as chairman, Central Board of Secondary Education, New Delhi on 20th May 2020. Prior to joining as chairman, CBSE, Sri Ahuja worked as Special Director of Lal Bahadur Shastri National Academy of Administration, Mussoorie. He worked in various capacities in his cadre in departments of agriculture, Department of Steel and Mines, and Food and Civil Supply Department. His hobbies include reading and sports. It's an honor and privilege to have you, sir, with us today. May I request you, sir, to kindly deliver inaugural address.
Thank you so much for inviting me to this program, Sixth National Conference on E-Learning and E-Learning Technologies. Actually, I had the older schedule for the inauguration, so I was anticipating that I would be speaking at the end. But I think probably I had written to Mr. Sasikumar that I have limited time, so you might have preponed it. So thank you very much. I think a very good morning to all the listeners and the eminent speakers who are present here and my co-panelists, including Jaydeep Kumar, Colonel Nath, Dr. Mangla, and Mrs. P.R. Lakshmi, Shri A.S. Murthy, who are all present here. And I think this conference has a great national and strategic importance. Mrs. Lakshmi Eshwari talked about the fact that COVID, with all the issues and adversaries and the disruption it has carried out in the education sector, has led to one thing. It has led to putting in technology, putting in e-learning and technology in the education fields, in classrooms, which perhaps would have taken more than a decade to come to this stage. And that is because closure of schools forced us to look for alternatives, and e-learning and technologies associated with e-learning was the only option. So there is a wealth of experience about e-learning and e-learning technologies we have gathered. Naturally, it's also important to say that during COVID, what the government efforts were, number one, it provided content in a varied form on a platform called Diksha, where content for all classes from 1 to 12th was made available, along with assessments, along with teaching plans, along with videos, along with textbooks, which were QR coded. For example, a child could, through his mobile or some interface through the app, put it on a textbook and he would go to the relevant content on Diksha. For children who were not able to access through internet, the same program, it was made in a coherent mode, was provided in on the TVs through Swayam Prabha and One Class One channel scheme. Community radios, podcasts, etc., were also utilized so that the reach could be maximized as possible. A very path-breaking document, the National Education Policy, came out last year, and to an extent, it's important for us to also understand what does it enunciate. Very broadly, it lays a lot of emphasis on technology and its use in education. Specifically, it also talks about various technologies like AI, like AR, VR, and numerous technologies which can be used in the field of education. It talks about progressively moving towards a blended mode of education, where up to 40% of the content would be in a blended mode, which NCERT has been tasked with the task of developing it. You might have also heard that the National Institute of Open Schooling has also launched a virtual school, which is perhaps a first of its kind, where children can be a part of that system and learn through a virtual school. And on an institutional front, it talks about a National Education Technology Forum, which will perhaps be a high-level strategic think tank to provide advice on the entire gamut of the educational sector. So that would be like a vision or an overall perspective of how technology can impact on education and how the government should design its policies, programs, and interventions based on that. Government has also launched NDAR, National Digital Education Architecture, and this is something which will bring all the players in the ecosystem together. It'll unify different contributors. It'll help one participant to build on what the other has done, and it will catalyze developments in the education sector, provide provide reference blocks, innovation sandboxes, and essentially avoid duplication. And it is based on an architecture which is very open and built on, it has got, let's say, building blocks on which it is built. It's federated in the sense that since education is a concurrent subject, so states will have their own domain and their autonomy, the schools will have their own domain and their autonomy, data privacy will have to be ensured, it will have registries so that no longer one will have difficulty in matching information or collating information. And it has, like I said, it has certain building blocks. A building block would be something like, let's say, a UPI building block, which allows various players, whether it is people who are providing you with wallets or mobile phone companies on one side and banks on the different sides, and allowing that settlements, and all of them can interact with each other because there is a common building block, which is a set of codes which define certain standards on which they can interact with each other and allows it. And people can build up on this. A very simple example is if you go for shopping to a small shop or a vegetable vendor, you make a payment, somebody has built an app which also speaks it out, announces the transaction for people who may not know whether the transaction has happened. So somebody else has done it. So essentially this is what NDAR is, and it has been launched and work has started, but it's important. The document is available on the public domain, and people who are in the field of technology, it's very important to go and have a look at the document. What does it entail? Or what does the architecture talk about, which will have important and significant implications for the education sector. The next thing, if you would have seen reviews or surveys which assess the state of education in India, one is the National Achievement Survey, which is done by the government itself, and the next achievement survey would be carried out in this November, which will perhaps be a first such countrywide survey which will assess the educational standards and perhaps the learning losses. It will be carried out classes 3, 5, 8, and 10. But both NAS and ACER, which is carried out on a smaller scale by another agency, show that the levels of learning at various stages in the education sector are very low. A lot has to be done. And technology does offer us an opportunity in addressing both these issues, one of equity and one of excellence. By equity, I mean is if technology is there, if it has a differential impact, then that we need to address upfront through ensuring a digital infrastructure in terms of maybe digital devices to access, in terms of connectivity, so that no child is left behind. That is more an infrastructure or a hardware problem in a way, but that's very essential. Otherwise, it can enhance inequality in the system in terms of access to education. Second is if we are able to use technology and reach out to everybody, then there is no reason why a child in a small village cannot access the best resources, cannot access the best lectures, cannot access the best teacher which are available globally or in India. And that is where excellence can come in. No longer would a child be limited to his school or to his locality. In fact, he can access whatever is available globally. And it is for us to ensure a system which is economical, which is viable, and which is user friendly, and which a child can search. And behind it, we can build up systems like AI and others, which will ensure, if a child can actually do personalized learning at his own level. So that it offers tremendous scope, and these are issues which need to be addressed so that we can put these systems as quickly as possible in the field, which will enable our children to, like I said, both. Once we put in the infrastructure, a lot of effort has been made through BharatNet and other a lot of devices are being given. Once the infrastructure is there to ensure that the best is available to a child and he is able to access the material and learn on his own. This, in fact, technology enables us to, unshackle a physical classroom and the constraints associated with a physical classroom. A lack of resources there, differential quality of teachers. So it does offer us something like a anytime, anywhere schooling, which is possible. with the best resources at a let us say at a child enabled personalized level. Besides, I think it will enhance the entire ecosystem. There is a system where children go to local people for tuition or other things. Such a system would also enhance the capability of others who are associated with the education system, be it private tuition people who give at a very low level in the villages, be it parents who are associated, they can help their children. So I think the entire the ecosystem which is around the child can also enhance their abilities and capabilities if we have this system in place. And areas, a lot of research would be needed if it is e-learning. How do children actually learn? What is the best way to design a content? What is the periodicity of content? What is the kind of content? And these are issues which we need to engage, I think, in the coming years to understand which will have the maximum impact, which will have the most efficiency, which children would like to use. People talk about gamification, people talk about VR, AR, people talk about AI, which will ensure that concepts are linked in a ladder and a child can learn at his own level. But there is research available, but more solid research so that we can actually productize the education content in a way it has a maximum impact and children can actually learn, teachers can actually learn, and others associated with learning in the ecosystem can also learn that. Second, perhaps would be, let's say commodification of education. Small concepts could be available in a standalone package through various mediums. It could be through in an audio, it could be through videos, but breaking it up and where a child is free to pick up. He doesn't have to buy or enroll for an entire course. It could be small pockets of learning which are available. So we'll have to commoditize the education content which is there. And both of these would result in a democratization of education, of quality education across the country, which we think is very significant. And then one more problem which I envisage we will have to face is regarding children with special needs. And the ministry has come out with some guidelines on standardizing it for across the different streams which have been marked out as children with different abilities in different sectors. Very varied content is to be prepared. Issues of universal design, which has to be used while generating even textbooks, has to be done, and an effort systematically to be made to generate this kind of content so that it becomes inclusive. Education becomes inclusive. I think there's a lot of let's say anticipation and expectation from technology and what it can do in the education sector. It offers us an opportunity to relook at what we are doing, do it in a better manner. And like I said, there are a number of gaps which are there in the education sector, which is borne out by surveys done, large assessment surveys, and how to bridge that gap and bring about, like I said, equity and excellence in the education sector so that no child is left behind. Every child is able to, whatever his potential is, able to learn, able to use his ability, and a lot of agency, make it available to him. He should no longer be dependent on just a local school or a local person or a local teacher, but there could be numerous helping points in the ecosystem in which a child lives. So I think I am very optimistic, and I'm sure people as capable as you would be working on it, thinking about it. These were a few points I think we should keep in our mind, and the challenge would be to roll out these things as early as possible, as quickly as possible, so that they can be used by students and teachers across the country. So thank you very much, and I do wish all the best for this conference. I'm sure a lot of ideas would come out, and with the help of everybody working together, we'll be able to translate them into a reality which will help the people of this country. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir, for sharing your views on practical challenges faced in the education sector and also highlighting national level initiatives to enhance the teaching learning process. Thank you very much, sir.